Think back to 2010, the summer of LeBron, and how the Knicks had done backflips, all sorts of rejiggering of the roster, of the cap, of their assets, all in the efforts to sign one LeBron James. I'm going to take you back to 2008, 2009, when this talk of LeBron James coming to the Knicks started to become, I don't know if you want to call it fantasy or if you want to call it something that, Knicks fans were starting to justify in their head as something that could actually happen. All sorts of rationalization that, oh, wait, look, if you look closely at LeBron James' sneaker, he had a sign or a sticker that said, I love New York. Or if you look at LeBron James' locker, he has a Yankees cap in it. All of these are hints, man, that he wants to come to New York. He wants to play on the biggest stage in the world. He wants to play in the biggest number one media market in the world. He wants to be LeBron James in New York, not in Cleveland. We convinced ourselves. We convinced ourselves that LeBron James was earmarked to come to New York, where he can be the biggest star he could possibly be, that his face was going to be all over every billboard. Times Square was essentially going to be LeBron James Square, that there was going to be his own dedicated TV show on the MSG TV network. He was going to have multiple weekly radio spots on ESPN Radio. I mean, it was just going to be LeBron-a-palooza for as long as he was a New York Knick. Why? Because we were so desperate that the second we heard any leak of LeBron James being a fan of New York City, as if other players aren't, or that how much of an affinity he has for Madison Square Garden, as if other players don't, we allowed ourselves to become delirious. We allowed ourselves to become delusional. We fell for the fantasy that LeBron James wanted to be a Knick. Until we were asked the question, well, what exactly do the Knicks have to offer? That's where we fell a bit short of the needed response. The answers were along the lines of that if LeBron comes to New York, the marketing dollars, there are secret clauses in his Nike contract that are going to elevate because he came to New York and now his exposure is through the roof and so on and so forth. As far as basketball reasons, we really didn't have too many. The Knicks did what they could to clear enough space and to essentially transform their franchise to be set up and ready for LeBron to come in, to clear cap space. I remember, for a lot of the mid-2000s, the New York Knicks were in cap hell. That is until Donnie Walsh came along and he made a couple of key moves, key trades. There was that trade with the Houston Rockets. I mean, you remember this team had Zach Randolph as one of their, centerpiece players. And, you looked around that team and, a lot of fans said to themselves, had they kept that team around a little longer, there could have been something there. But again, the end game was to get LeBron James. And the Knicks weren't alone in that pursuit. Just about every team in the NBA had those same fantasies that somehow LeBron James was going to come to their team. So much so that LeBron James and his representation felt justified in setting up a central meeting place where teams would come to him. I mean, where in professional sports have you ever heard of a free agent holding a kangaroo court where teams are flying around the country having to put together, well-structured pitches to LeBron James? Now, as far as we know, all of this is already pre-orchestrated, that LeBron and Chris Bosh are going to join Dwayne Wade in Miami, and they're going to form their big three, and the rest is history. But again, going back to the Knicks, when the question was asked, what can you offer LeBron James other than Danilo Gallinari and the opportunity to gain more marketing dollars in New York, we really didn't have too many answers at the time. We didn't. And if you really think about it, for many years, the Knicks were in a position where they had no tradable assets, they had no cap space, they had no flexibility, and they had no infrastructure. They had no core. So what did you have to offer a free agent other than, all right, if it's a, seventh-year player who's just looking for the next contract, here you go. There's our mid-level exception. Or you're a 32-year-old, 33-year-old, hey, here you go, come in on our vets minimum. But to attract the star player, other than being used for leverage, uh, the Knicks never really, I mean, you go back to the last 15, 20 years, rare instances in which the Knicks have had requisite cap space to really entice a top tier free agent. Fine, even if they had that, they didn't have the team. They had no infrastructure. They had no, core to say, hey, come play with this guy and that guy, and we're building towards something here, and now we need you to help us get over the top. In the Knicks case in 2009, 2010, it was, hey, LeBron, come here, and now we'll try to build around you, even though we really only have cap space for you. But did we mention we have Danilo Gallinari? Now, I mentioned Gallinari. Gallinari, of course, that next season took off as a player. I mean, morphed himself into a top tier. I don't want to say elite because then you're putting him in another category, but a very, very, very good NBA wing player. Almost, the one of the first prototypes for the modern NBA wing player. And then obviously with the Knicks getting Amari Stoudemire and, having a team that featured the likes of Raymond Felton, of Landry Fields, it was exciting for a half of the NBA season, and then obviously it all came falling apart, and then they made the trade for Carmelo Anthony, Chauncey Billups, decent team, but getting absolutely spanked by the Miami Heat, and the rest is history. But we fast forward to now, in 2018. If you were to ask a Knicks fan that question again, what do you have to offer? The answer is different now, because what the Knicks did yesterday, or 2 days ago rather, with the trade for with trading away Kristaps Porzingis, is they cleared enough cap space for 2 max free agents. $74.6 million is what's projected to be available to the Knicks, which is the most by far of any team in this upcoming offseason. Why is it important? Because now, if you ask the question, what do the Knicks have to offer, and let's not be secretive about it, what do they have to offer to Kevin Durant? They have the franchise to offer to Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant goes from being the villain in Oklahoma City. I'll take it a step further beyond that, or step before that. Growing up essentially with Russell Westbrook in Oklahoma City for a limited time with James Harden, they were a feel-good story, right? That was the team you were rooting for. You were hoping they were going to get over the top, and especially the first year of the Big Three with Miami, all of America, other than South Florida, was rooting for the Oklahoma City Thunder in the finals. Obviously, they came up short, but you saw a team in the Oklahoma City Thunder evolve, right? In a pattern where you look at this young Knicks team and you say to yourself, that's kind of what we want the Knicks to evolve into, a team that eventually is going to grow organically, draft the right way, make the right smart moves, and be in a position where now you can add a player who's going to bring that equation, bring that mold over the top, and get them, organically up the Eastern Conference standings. And you look at from that point on, right? Durant had the year where, he suffered the major injury, the Achilles injury. And then eventually he made the decision to go to Golden State to join a team that just beat him the previous year and become part of the, the new age Beatles of the NBA, the Golden State Warriors. A move that was widely criticized as weak, as one where, all right, you're Kevin Durant. Yeah, you won a championship ring. What does that really matter? What weight does that really carry? I mean, you joined a ready-made team with the likes of Steph Curry, with Klay Thompson, with Draymond Green. And, all right, great. Yeah, you were a factor in the NBA Finals 2 years in a row. Phenomenal. But what weight does that NBA championship ring carry? Because you joined a team that's not your team. So, when the history books are written, yeah, you'll be an NBA champion, but you didn't steer that team in that direction. You weren't the face of that franchise. So, obviously now the conversation is, where is Kevin Durant going to go? The comfortable choice would be, well, look, inevitably going to win another championship this year with the Golden State Warriors. What's to say he doesn't just say, you know what, I'm just going to stick around here. I got a great situation. We're moving into a brand new arena in downtown San Francisco. I love this city. It's young, it's hip, it's modern, and we're winning. We don't lose games. I'm just going to stick around here. And you know what? That'll be the end of that story, and the Knicks are going to have to go to plan B. The other thought is, well, what if Kevin Durant wants to join LeBron James? Those rumors have been floated for a long time now that, ultimately it's going to be two of Klay Thompson, Kyrie Irving, Anthony Davis, obviously, or Kevin Durant. Two of those players are going to ultimately join LeBron James in Los Angeles, and you're going to have another big three situation in Los Angeles, and, off they go. Now, Kevin Durant came out earlier this season and kind of put those rumors to bed for a little bit, essentially saying that he doesn't want to be part of that mess. He doesn't want to be part of the LeBron experience. And what's he saying when he says he doesn't want to be part of the LeBron experience? What he's saying is that he doesn't want to be in a situation where, first of all, LeBron is calling all the shots. It's not his team, it's LeBron's teams. And no, I know, Magic Johnson, general manager, we know it's LeBron's team. The Lakers, nor any team that LeBron James is on, is not making a key decision without the approval of LeBron James. So, with that being said, I'm going to take it a step further. If the Lakers win a championship, guess who's getting the credit? You guessed it, it's LeBron. If the Lakers lose, guess who gets the blame? You guessed it, it's everyone but LeBron. Well, LeBron's going to get Jordan never lost in the finals, but ultimately it's going to fall on, the supporting cast, Kevin Durant and so on and so forth, didn't get the job done. So, Kevin Durant is looking at that and thinking to himself, all right, do I really want to be a part of that? So now you ask yourself, what do the Knicks have to offer for Kevin Durant? Well, for one, he is essentially handed the franchise. He would be to the Knicks what LeBron is to the Lakers. He would be handed a clean slate and be told, you tell us who you want us to sign to come along with you to New York. That in and of itself puts KD, I'm sorry, make some water. That puts KD in a situation that he's never been in before. And that is to be essentially the face, the voice, the key decision maker, everything is being planned around me of a team. Even in Oklahoma City, he's always tied at the hip with Russell Westbrook. So, you could say Kevin Durant was the Batman, Russell Westbrook was the Robin, but again, it was KD and Russ. It was never KD and Russ. It was KD and Russ. They joint at the hip. In New York, he now gets to be the lead guy. He gets to be the main man. And that honeymoon period that he would come in with, especially with the departure of Porzingis and the way that it went down, oh my God, that honeymoon period would be like TLC times 30. I mean, the Knicks fan base would embrace Kevin Durant as if, we have never seen a basketball player before. And he knows that. But more importantly, if you win one championship, if you end this 40-plus year drought, you are forever in basketball immortality. And I think he knows that too. But, let's get beyond the intangible aspects. Let's talk about the on-court product. Biggest difference between 2009, 2010 to now? What can the Knicks offer a max free agent? What can the Knicks offer a top-tier free agent? Now you can give them an answer. Now you can tell them, look, we are developing a young and an exciting scoring talent in Kevin Knox, who's going to be entering his second year. We are developing a very raw rookie center who, if he ever figures it out, could be a defensive force and just an automatic low-post scorer for years to come in Mitchell Robinson. We're developing also a young and exciting rookie point guard who, again, needs to be held in, reined in a little bit, but has the talent to be a great pick and roll player, even if he's coming off the bench as a sixth man, maybe even as a seventh man in Alonzo Trier. You're looking at Frank Ntilikina, presuming that he's still on the team, as a defensive guard. So you now actually have parts to display for an incoming free agent. And on top of all of that, you're saying to them, look, we have a high draft pick. Now, whether that's Zion Williamson, whether that's R.J. Barrett, or whether that's John Morant from Murray State, again, you now have players that you can put on a plate and say, this would be available to you. You are now coming into a situation where we're going to have you help us elevate their standard, their level of quality. And oh, by the way, you have the flexibility of bringing in someone of your choice to this equation. Kevin Durant has never been handed those keys to the organization the way that the Knicks will be able to offer him the keys to their organization. So, look, for all that went down yesterday, what did the Knicks walk away with? The Knicks walk away with over $74 million in cap space. You now have 7 first-round draft picks in the next 5 years. And I know some people kind of joke like, well, isn't it just 2 more than, 5 draft picks in 5 years? It sounds funny, and it sounds like a kind of like a duh answer. But when you look at the history of the Knicks, the recent history of the Knicks, 2010, they didn't have a first-round pick. 2014, 2016, they did not have first-round draft picks. So to have first-round draft picks in 5 years in a row is something of a novelty to this organization. Now you're talking about 7 first-round draft picks in 5 years for this organization. What does that give you? That gives you flexibility. You now have assets. The Knicks acquired Dennis Smith Jr., and for all the talk, and it's really getting nauseating at this point, that, well, the Knicks could have had him a year earlier. Well, they didn't get him. They could have had Donovan Mitchell a year earlier, but they didn't get him. This idea that, Phil Jackson and, drafting Ntilikina, you know how many other teams could have had their hands on Donovan Mitchell? Call them out too, then. So that's a narrative. It's tired, okay? It's tired. Dennis Smith Jr., his positives, the guy could score, the guy could slash, the guy can dish. He did not see eye to eye with Rick Carlisle. Obviously, they now have a very exciting young talent in Luka Doncic. But for someone to just say that Dennis Smith Jr. is, you're going to give up on a player that's, 20, 21 years old, who has clear ability that you just saw the other night, him putting up a triple-double like it was nothing against the Knicks at Madison Square Garden. I'm not saying the Knicks are going to now groom him into the next whatever great point guard. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that you now have a young point guard at your disposal. Yes, you're looking at Emmanuel Mudiay. You're evaluating him. You're now evaluating Kadeem Allen. You're evaluating Frank Ntilikina. But yeah, you know what? You will evaluate Dennis Smith Jr. as well. And what can come out of that? There is a scenario in which all of a sudden he finds himself in New York. Maybe he finds chemistry with Kevin Knox. Maybe he finds chemistry with whoever they end up drafting, with their high draft pick, assuming that it's not Morant out of Murray State. There could be positives from that front. Another positive? That's another trade asset. That's another young asset that you now can bundle with your future draft picks or another young player, and maybe you turn that into something. But the point is, for the first time in ages, for the first time that you can remember, the Knicks don't have bad contracts on their books now. They don't have, that the logjam of, old veteran players that they don't know what to do with. Now they're looking at a clean slate where they have room to accommodate 2 max free agents. They have draft picks. They have a young infrastructure that's looking to develop, into this team's identity. This team is finally building a core. These are all positives, and these are all things that the Knicks are going to be able to offer Kevin Durant, in addition to saying, Kevin Durant, Here are the keys to the New York Knicks. You drive this puppy however you want to drive it, because this is your team now. This is KnickFM, KnickFM.com, coming soon. If you want to contribute, we will have our contact information posted soon. KnickFM and KnickFM.com.